Hi guys, in this video I'm going to try and avoid painting loads of zombies.
Scruffy Crow.
Okay, so I want a whole batch, 20 odd zombies for a game, or maybe not that many, but loads. And I've got these really nice ones from Imitation of Life, and I've painted a couple of these before, and because they're very, very nice sculpts, they take a bit of time to paint. So what I'm going to do is I've got some brand new green resin, clear green resin, and I've got these Meltymen from Red Nebula Patreon. Links will all be in the description. And I'm going to pack these onto a plate. I'm going to print these in the green resin, and we're going to see how little we can paint them. Okay, so these are all printed out now. I did a test cube as well while I was there, and it looks pretty much spot on. So the success side's all good, and the failure side is all bad. So that is ideally what we'd look for. However, I did notice here and there we were missing a few drips that didn't print correctly. So there was something that can be tweaked there. But on the most part, everyone's printed just fine. One thing I did notice about this resin is how bumpy and they're not quite rightly formed the bottoms of these are. So these were printed sort of 45 degrees back. So yeah, it's kind of sagged a bit under there. Obviously not a problem, that's why they were lined that way, so I can just sand that off and we'll be fine. So I got these guys scaled up to these ones. So they got much bigger sort of heads, but that's fine. I made sure they were a similar height, and when they would be based, they're going to look about right. So that should scale up with pretty much all the rest of my models. See, these are a lot chunkier. So I'm going to stick these on some bases as well. Also, I'm going to take one of the worst formed ones here. So this guy was missing a whole drip off his hand. And I'm going to try and add a little bit of something to them. I was considering trying to paint the sort of skull parts a little bit, but I don't think I will now. But I think I'm going to try something like this. I've said this before about Red Nebula models, but they do somewhat have the sort of 80s action figure look about them a little bit. And because this guy's obviously all mono-coloured and we've just washed him, it does bring me into mind of something like a Monsters in My Pocket or something like that, which is kind of cool. You'll notice as well, while the wash is wet, that's obviously put that shine back on and completely covered up any scraping I did. So we have a solution even if we don't put the wash on. I've got an idea for that. But presumably this will dry matte again. Also, you can see, now I've got the wash on and he's kind of more clear, you can see right through this guy. We've got some more options. I think I preferred the first one. See there, that one's a more sort of a darker bluier one. This is the Beltane green this time. I think I prefer the camo shade. I think that adds to the sort of yellowiness that we kind of want. More toxic wasty rather than the darker one. Okay, so we'll leave that for now and we'll get these guys all put on some little wooden bases. For this, I've just got an emery board out and we're just going to give these guys a quick run up and down that. And a dash of industrial strength super glue should do the thing. And I'm trying to make sure the whole bottom of this is coated. And this is because you can see through it to a certain extent, so I want it to stay the same. Now after these are set, I'm going to add some PVA and some sand, just like I would with a normal Mini, except the difference is being I'm not going to undercoat it. It just dawned on me to check out what this would look like with some of the warp lightning contrast, but I think the coverage on this is too good, and I think you lose some of that, the benefit of it being clear in the first place. But we'll leave it half and half like this, and we'll take a look at these when they're fully dry again. And I think we're going to slightly change the order. I think we're going to, whichever wash we choose to go with, I think we are going to go with the wash, I'm going to do before we put the sand on, which is completely out of the order I normally do things. Oh, and actually while we're still experimenting, We've got some of this Nurgle's Rot technical paint, which I've used to some pretty good effect in the past. So let's see what we can do with that as well. So going on quite matte. It's a pretty good colour. Obviously it's not thin enough that it'll go into the recesses. But if it's anything like the Blood for a Blood God, which I've used a lot more than I've used this, it does dry a lot clearer. And it is sinking into the recesses somewhat. But it's another thing to try. Okay, I think our test piece is quite dry. I am still somewhat preferring the camo shade, but in general, he's not looking great. And that is where this part of the plan comes in. We've got some just Halford's lacquer, designed for like cars and stuff, but I use this for a variety of things. Alright, the lacquer's all dried on these now. So this is the one that's half Warp Lightning and half Nurgle's Rot. I said I kind of like the effect of the Nurgle's Rot, but I don't think it works for this. I don't hate the Warp Lightning, but yeah, I don't know, not convinced either. It has done quite a good job of pulling out some of the face details. This is the other one. This is the green shade is down on this leg. That is the camo shade down that side, which seems to have been fairly ineffective. And then that would be the Beltane green across the top here, which I think I like the most. But I'm not going to jump in and do all 10 just straight away. Let's just check. So this is the Beltane green. We're not watering it down or anything, just slapping this on, trying to get it to pull in just the recesses. Okay, we've got something a bit like that. I'm just going to make sure there's no super dark spots, but we've got some of the detail showing up. And really how it looks when the wash is first wet is pretty much, I think, what we're going to end up with. Obviously an option we have would be just to undercoat these and paint them regularly, like this. And the majority of the resin, this green resin that I print, I'll just be painting like regular. You'll not even know that it was ever transparent. But what I'm hoping is this process of just a wash and then a gloss, I'm hoping that is significantly quicker than even a colour dry brush, wash, dry brush or something like that. And just, you know, I am doing this as a bit of a novelty as well. Do you know what? I think I'm also going to see what it looks like if we just gloss one of these, because maybe I'll prefer that. Okay, so the raw resin just glossed up. It looks cool. Now it goes nice and clear, but I still prefer it with the wash on, I think. I'm happy with the way that looks. So I'm going to do the rest of these and get them all to that stage. Okay, so that's basically as much painting as I want to do on these guys, I think. On the models themselves, at least. So to try and make this look more like a fully painted miniature, we're just going to add some PVA all around the bottom of there, and then dip in the sand. As I said, just the way I'd do any normal mini. But obviously, usually we do this before the undercoat. So it means I am going to have to try and hand paint this sand, which might be tricky. Okay, so it's this stage that I was most worried about. I've got them all sanded up. And I'm going to do the bases in this kind of colour, to try and match a bunch of the other stuff I'm doing for this game. So this is using these foundry paints. Now these don't have the best coverage, so I'm a bit nervous about putting them over the bare sand. So I might, instead of using the Foundry A, I think I might just go with this Zandri Dust, which I know has got pretty good coverage, just as a sort of undercoat under here. And then I can work up to the other two yellows off the back of this, and I think that'll look okay. See, the Zandri Dust is going on pretty easy. Just interested to see how the Foundry goes on, actually. Actually, it looks like I needn't have worried. I'm not worried about slathering it on a bit thick, and that's actually covering about as well as it would on across the base, like an undercoat. So, all right, okay, it's going to take me ages, but we're going to put all that on. And we're going to try and use the biggest brush I can get away with. Actually, with the help of this cheap Primark makeup brush, I got those bases down pretty fast. And despite the fact I'm not the biggest fan of this foundry paint, it has actually covered over that sand perfectly well. So once that's dry, which is going to take a time because I have slapped it on thick, I'll go back over it with these two colours until we're left with something that looks kind of like that. Okay, my workspace has got somewhat cluttered with all the other models I'm trying to paint simultaneously to these ones, but they've now all had the 3 coats of sandy paint, which I quite like. So paint wise, all that leaves is the rims. So for those, I'm going to use some of this Abaddon Black. And there we are. I think I'm happy with these. They're all finished. And obviously on their own, you can still tell that they're sort of unpainted and they've still got that kind of almost monsters in my pocket vibe going on. But I think once they're on the table with other fully painted models and the bases all sort of tie in, I think that's certainly going to put them in context. And I actually really like the way they've come out. So this is something I'm going to experiment with again, I think, for sure. And I'm pretty happy with them. And that is definitely a lot quicker than individually painting some lovely detailed zombies, especially to get 10 of them on the table in maybe an hour's work. And I think they look perfectly reasonable, if not better than that, especially as their only role is to be gunned down as part of a scenario. And seeing as they were a success, I decided to have a few more experiments. We did a bigger guy, not quite as transparent. I think that's just because of the bulk there. There was similar sort of process to get in. I also experimented with sort of a mixture of paint and then this was just Ard Coat, Games Workshop Ard Coat, to do the gloss sections, so we didn't lose too much detail on the painted sections. Obviously not finished, this was just some base coats. I said just playing around with techniques. Also, this was with washing some parts and not others to create different coloured transparency bits, which was a partial success. I also tried with some darker washes and stuff. This is a similar technique. I was just testing out how it looked, and I don't actually like it. I think there's better ways to do ghostly figures like this, but I just wanted to see what it would look like. So a failed experiment, but that's what happens when you experiment, I guess. On the opposite end of that, though, there was this. So this I would normally make the bit of terrain and then sort of pour some sort of resin or make a texture in there and gloss it. But this one, the whole piece is one big clear green chunk, and then most of it has been painted, but then I've just left unpainted and glossed the goo sections. And I think that's worked quite nicely to make a little goo pond for these guys to maybe have emerged from. So a technique that's definitely saved me some time on these guys to get things on the table faster and made some interesting effects, and has been a fun thing to experiment with. And that's all for this video. Please let me know what you thought down in the comments. Maybe subscribe for more. And as ever, thanks for watching. Bye.